Hello everybody, Griever84 here with another video for you guys here today. Today we're going to be talking about Nightmare Fuel. Now, I was asked in one of my live streams recently, what are some good ways for both newer players and veterans alike to farm Nightmare Fuel that doesn't necessarily involve direct fighting? Now, it was actually a pretty good question because it made me think a little bit, and I realized that one, fighting is still the best way to amass large amounts of nightmare fuel to begin with, but I'm going to show you guys a couple alternatives that are passive. They may not generate nightmare fuel as fast, but they are still ways that you can gather it if you're not a fan of fighting. So, with that, make sure to like the video, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel, but let's get into this action here. Alright? Now, one of the very first things I'm going to show you here is a flower field. This flower field is a setup that I did here, and it's basically just a bunch of regular flowers planted by butterflies. And as you can see, if yourself or another player on your server has passed, you can then haunt the flowers to turn them evil. Now, this can take you one of two routes for nightmare fuel farming, because every so many petals, I believe it's 4, you can refine that into a single piece of nightmare fuel. So, the first option is to gather a large amount of butterflies, plant them, have you or a friend haunt the flowers for you to turn them evil, and then of course harvest them immediately for nightmare fuel. Now, I'm going to go ahead and speed this process up here a little bit so you guys can see the field once it's done, but I'm going to continue talking about this. The other option is to, of course, complete the nightmare fuel or the haunted flower field, and then what you can do is you can actually get yourself some homeless bees. Now, the homeless bees act as a slow growth for the flowers, and they will eventually propagate evil flowers outside of the area that you set up here, and then any extra evil flowers that you've gotten, you can then pick and refine into nightmare fuel. Now remember, this is a very slow process. You're not going to make a lot of nightmare flowers really fast, so make sure that you have either some gift wrap or some bundling wrap to keep those flowers fresh. Another thing to keep in mind here is, unless you are playing on endless like I am right now, that you will have a timer in your world that is counting down. So make sure that you have a life-giving amulet nearby if you're the only one on your server, so your world does not reset. Alright, next up here I have a underground monkey farm. Now, I went ahead and set this up already just to explain in the video what exactly is going to go on here. This is something that I will do a more in-depth video on later. Obviously, this was originally seen on other DST streamers' streams and probably across YouTube. But the idea is that during the nightmare phase, as you can see by the nightmare amulet there, the spelunkies will turn into shadow spelunkies. And if you run around and gather them as you see me currently doing, which for any of my longtime viewers, you know how hilarious me doing this actually is. But you run back over to your catapult farm here, which was set up by a Winona player. And not only are you going to get some extra things like bananas, morsels, and of course beard hair, but you will also get the ever so important nightmare fuel from this. Now, the great thing about this farm is it is passive. You can do it during the summer when you're underground hiding from wildfires. You know, there's not a lot that's really required of it other than making sure that you have gems to keep the catapults active. And it's a great way to thin out your monkey herds if you know you want to be over here, you know, hammering down the Thulecite walls or just traveling through in general over to your ruin section. But it's, you know, fairly safe. The only danger is right here when you're running in through the loop to make sure that the monkeys don't continue into your actual farm area. You know, I've got some lights down so that I could always be lit up. Like if I took my goggles off here, you know, I'm not in danger of Charlie attacking me or anything like that. When it comes to building this, you know, you usually want to do a choke point, but since my world didn't generate with one of those in relation to my monkey fields, I had to improvise a little bit with statues. But like I said, this is something that I will do a more in-depth video on in the future, explaining exactly what's going on here. But even just a couple of passes there got me about 15 pieces of nightmare fuel. Had a couple extra from the shadow there at the beginning. But this is a second way that you can gather nightmare fuel in your world without you yourself having to actually fight anything. And of course, finally here we have the tried and true method of gathering nightmare fuel, and that is just fighting. Now, you don't necessarily have to be insane for this, because obviously a lot of players or people in my Twitch chat often comment about how they are having troubles with their sanity. So one of the things I would recommend is making yourself a nightmare amulet, because they are fairly simple to come by. I believe it's just a few pieces of gold, some nightmare fuel, and then you've got yourself a amulet that actually induces insanity for you. Now, unfortunately, you cannot refill this, but you know, even with the cost of a couple of shadow gems, it's still not that bad. And you can farm a pretty respectable stack of nightmare fuel while you're going at it here. Obviously, I got on Willow so I could use Bernie to kind of speed the process up and make things a little bit safer for myself. But of course, you can do this on any character. It just makes a little bit more sense to, you know, use what advantages I do have. And of course, as long as you let Bernie take aggro, you can then run in and swipe at the nightmare creatures as much as you want. As you can see here, even taking a few hits from terror beaks and things like that with a football helmet on, overall, it's not that bad. And of course, you know, this is the tried and true method for getting nightmare fuel. You know, it's one of those resources that you just kind of passively gather in the game as you are either insane, you're down in the ruins clearing it, you know, you might get some from, you know, mining statues during the nightmare phase, things like that. But this at least shows about three different ways that brand new players and veterans alike can get some nightmare fuel in their worlds through different methods. So my question to you this point, viewers, is if you guys have a different method, let me know in the comments. I'd like to see what fun things you guys have come up with to get a hold of stacks and stacks of nightmare fuel, because obviously they're needed. Dark swords and other magical creations alike are important. But yeah, thank you for checking out this video today. Leave a like on it, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and of course, until next time, my guardians, GG, and have a great week. See you guys later.